Hi, my name is Bianca Stein, and I'm going to be talking about living with bipolar disorder. So to just give you some backstory, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder about a year ago, December 2018, and the following year has just been a process of rediscovering myself through the lens of bipolar disorder. Meshed with a little bit of over-identifying with it, but learning to untangle myself from that and not label myself as a bipolar person, more so just somebody who's living with bipolar. And I've just, like I said, spent this past year just as dispassionately as I can labeling what I'm now realizing is, like, oh, that's hypomania, or oh, that's, depression. And not feeling like, oh my God, like, what is my brain doing? It's like, oh, okay, I'm starting to understand you now. I think it's important for everyone to find the thing that works for them, because what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you. I just felt called to share, things that have helped me. I think no matter who you are, you can benefit from taking care of your mental health. And I think you'll notice me saying that a lot throughout the video, where I say, yeah, like, this doesn't just apply to a bipolar person. But I think, it's important to recognize that we're, not extremely different from a person without bipolar disorder. We just, I think, feel things to a much more extreme extent, so we have to be extra careful and extra kind and extra gentle and extra aware of where our moods are going. Oh great, the sun is blinding you all with my skin. But yeah, so I guess let's just get into it. So the first tip, I guess, would be to track your moods. This is something that has been super helpful for me, especially because you take so much power back when you're able to label what you're feeling. And then that awareness helps you not over-identify with that feeling. So, and if you wake up and you're not in a good mood, you don't immediately equate that to, oh, I'm a bad person. Or if you wake up, feeling great, you don't automatically assume you're God. The resources I've turned to, there's an app called Mood Meter. When I got it, I think it was like $1.99. I don't know if they've gone up at all or whatever. Their format has completely changed. Like, it's gotten so much better. It's so user-friendly. I'll show it to you guys now. So it basically looks like this. I don't know if it's gonna focus, but you basically start off choosing one of the colors. The red and yellow represent high energy. The blue and green energy represent low energy, or the colors. And then the red and blue are unpleasant feelings, and then green and yellow are pleasant feelings. Pick whichever color you're feeling, and then inside, I don't know if you can see, but there's like various shades that will pick up like an emotion that you're feeling. For the yellow, there's like enthusiastic, or motivated, or upbeat, or exhilarated, and then there's tons more in the various colors. You're able to really like look through. So like, this is like a week. I've been kind of like bad about recording my moods, but like, there's like a weekly list button, and there's like it keeps track. Like, you can write sort of like what triggered you, or what's causing this emotion, or like, why are you feeling this way, and so you can really kind of like start tracking data of your moods. It's really nice, especially, if you're moving through like a different mood by the hour. You're able to really track that, and you can see over a course of days. And even if it doesn't always look the same, you kind of know what to expect. It makes it a little bit easier to plan your life and do you. Another thing that I found helpful, which is a dorky astrology thing. If you're not into that, like, bear with me for like 2 minutes. But I feel very influenced by the moon. I'm a Cancer. So I purchased myself like a little moon calendar, so everything's so goddamn bright, so nothing pops up. I have to like angle it. But it basically says what like quarter of the moon we're in, what sign it falls into. And honestly, when I started, I didn't even really expect to learn anything. I just was absent-mindedly logging my day-to-day. I personally feel like we're all connected to the moon, regardless if you're an astrology person or a Cancer or no. Because, I mean, the moon affects the ocean and the tides and like the water on our planet, and we are made up of water. So why would we not feel the pull of that energy? But topic for another day. What I found out that was really insightful for me is that without fail, every single Sagittarius moon, when the moon falls under Sagittarius, I get hypomania, like clockwork. It's just interesting to gather this data on yourself and see like, oh, I have a pattern. You don't necessarily have to do anything with it right away. But for me, it kind of helps me, especially since our moods are so consistent. You know, I could make plans today when I'm feeling super social and energized and excited. And then I could make plans in like 3 days time. And then the day gets here and I'm like, God, the last thing I want to do is socialize right now. Like, I really don't want to be seen. But I made these plans, you know, and then you look like that flaky asshole that like no one invites to anymore because you flake too much. For me, I found it helpful because at least, you know, it's not like a perfect system, and a part of, you know, living with bipolar is that there is really no consistency, except you know that you're gonna be up and down. You can kind of track it enough so that you can see a slight roadmap. You know, like I said, it's not perfect, but you can still be like, okay, well, I know I'm definitely not gonna want to see anyone there because I'm probably gonna be grumpy. You kind of know what your flow is so that you're not swept away in the current of your moods. And also that you're not over-identifying with your moods. I think I already said that, but I think it's so important to not over-identify with your brain or your body or your moods, or just don't let any of that, like, you are not that. Like, you are so much more than your brain, your body, your bipolar, which my girlfriend coined as your bi-power, which I think from here on I'm gonna start calling it that because it's such a cute name. Regardless of whatever label you've been put into, I think it's valid to bring awareness to things, but it's also not healthy to get to this place of like, well, you know, what's the point? Because this is how I am. So tip number 2, consistent sleep schedule. I feel like that one's really obvious, and it's one, you know, that like everyone says, like, drink enough water and exercise, especially when you're feeling yourself getting hypo or getting manic. I personally I go to sleep pretty late, like typically like midnight, 1:30 is like my average bedtime. But sometimes I will feel myself, you know, around midnight, 1 a.m. starting to, and it's so tempting to just use that and run off that energy. Come here, come say hi. Hi. Oh, she said no. She said no. Okay, bye. Another tip, get you a fur baby. They will humble you and make you forget about a lot of shit that doesn't really matter. But that really is like the most important time. Like, even if you're not really like sleeping, it's so vital just to lay your body down and give it the space to restore. Because the truth of the matter is, yeah, you're gonna stay up and like, you know, do shit around the world, whatever. But then like 7, 8 a.m. comes around, the sun starts rising, and then you're gonna crash, and then you're gonna wake up feeling like shit whenever you do finally go to sleep. And in my experience, it often invites in, provokes, or even exacerbates my depression. So like I'll have like this great, like, yeah, I spent like 8 hours just creating my life's work. And then boom, I'm like out for like the next week. Disclaimer, like nobody's experience is exactly the same, but I'm gonna kind of use it in a general sense since we're talking about the community of us. I know when we get hypo, we can get very confident and feel like, oh yeah, but I got this. I'm fine. I do that with alcohol. I guess we can segue that into like a third tip. That alcohol does not treat me well. I love when I'm drinking it and I have fun, but I notice the day or even days like following, like I didn't get like drunk, I just got like a little buzz, and I just was so, it was a social drink. I still feel the impact. My brain feels foggy. I lose my clarity. I get all stuttery. I don't know. I render myself useless, and I've gotten into the habit of just like really just choosing not to drink, especially when I have something that I want to be on for the next day. I don't know. That was just a small one. I didn't expect to throw that one in, but. So tip, I guess I'm on 4 now since I threw in this random ass third one. Okay, this is one that I really struggle with, but I think is so important to hold on to and so hard to do when you're like in a low part of your cycle. But remember, and maybe even like tell the people around you to remind you of this when you're feeling depressed, to not judge this part of the cycle. It can be so frustrating to know what your best self feels like, what your most energetic, what your most creative and inspired version of yourself is. And I know it's so frustrating to like know that and people meet that and have that expectation, and then you're in that low, and then suddenly like that person's gone, or it feels like that person's gone, and you're like, who am I without this person that I think everybody loves? The more we beat ourselves up about reaching a low, I found the longer I stay there. I'll wake up sad. I won't be able to like get out of bed that day, and I'm just looping in my head about, oh well, you're never gonna do anything, because no matter how good you feel or how high you get, you're always going to come back down to this place. You know, I'm like judging myself for like, well, you're not creative today, or like you're not going to be capable of being creative today, you're not going to be capable of being productive today. And I identify with my mood, and I'm like, oh well, the quality of my actions, and it's going to impact it in a way where like it's just not even worth making that action, because it's just going to be shit. Lately I've been practicing, and by lately I mean it took me a year. Like it took me all year to be like, girl, make space for that sad. Because I wasn't like, the sad would come up, and then I would try to stuff it down, because I was like, no, we don't have time for this. We all have cycles, we all have ebb and flows. Even if you don't have bipolar disorder, you still have an up and down of energy. You still have a flow, you know, you feel more tired some days, you feel more inspired some days. Like that happens regardless if you have bipolar disorder. We feel it to a bit more extreme, or like sometimes it moves faster, and it gets so easy to just get swept away in it and feel like that is all you are. You're not. That's not all you are. Final tip for this video. And I think this is probably one of the most important lessons that I've learned and have to keep relearning, is that we are not our brain. I know that it is so easy to listen to these thoughts that just force themselves into your head. And it's so easy to, hear it and think, yeah, that's true. But then really question, where is that coming from? Why do I think that? Is that true? Your brain is just trying to survive. It is a machine for survival. If we're looking at the primal aspect of it, like the amygdala was for us to be aware of predators and to constantly be on our guard so that we can be ready to run or fight or, fight or flight. But we're living in the modern world now, and I feel like the next survival of the fittest test is learning to separate ourselves from our mind, learning to separate ourselves from this anxiety. I'm not saying we can rid ourselves of anxiety or rid ourselves of bipolar disorder, but if we avoid identifying with it, it doesn't run us, it doesn't rule us. We're not giving our power away to something that is just a label, and it's very real and it affects our existence, and it can make life challenging, but it does not define who you are and what you're capable of and what you're worth. Like, we're all capable of amazing things. I guess letting ourselves identify with that. Like, if you need to identify with something, why not make it positive? Why not make it less scary? It's so easy to say this, like, yeah, when you're in a good place, it's so easy to say, like, when your brain chemistry is there. The point is to practice this in your low, and the point is to find resources and reach for resources that can help you when you are in a low. When you're in the bad feeling, like, it rules your actions, it guides your actions, so you take actions in response to this mood that you're in. When it should be like, regardless, like, when you are able to separate yourself from that, you can take actions. And just because you feel bad doesn't mean you have to have a bad day. Or even if you have a bad day, it doesn't mean that there isn't good things that can happen within that day. I think that's it for this video. This went a lot longer than I thought it would. Hopefully you were able to, pick up anything that would help, or if you already knew it, it just reminded you to refresh on that or to pick that back up. Hope you're all taking care of yourselves, and I hope wherever you are in your cycle, you can give yourself the freedom and space to feel it. All right, guys, later.